everybody, and welcome to a new reading journal video. In this video I show you what I read in my review for the month of March. So this month I had a little bit more going on, so overall I only finished 6 books. And I had one that I did not finish, so I DNF'd this book. It was an audiobook on Spotify, and I have to say, I basically did not want to continue with it because it was just, I don't know, really high on the spicy side, and especially when it is an audiobook, I personally don't really like that. And I was only like, I don't know, 2 hours into a 9-hour story, and it was only about the spicy part. So I said, oh, I don't want to do this, and I chose not to finish it. But yeah, the 6 books overall I quite liked. So let's go to the first book, which is called Butter. It's another Japanese book, and I have to say I'm still in that phase that I really enjoy the Japanese books, and overall this was a very fascinating story. It was criticizing the male role of society, especially in Japan, but overall I think this is a phenomenon happening in all of the world, that the men at a certain age really rely on women for all the cooking, cleaning, housekeeping, etc. And it also really showcased in a quite a beautiful way that even though all the little people in that story are quite different, they all got along together well. And overall the main storyline is that a woman is in prison, and you don't know if she killed 4 men or no, because she was always, before the men died, was in a relationship with them. So, and the main character is basically a journalist who investigates and wants to get to know her a little bit better. And because it's also talking a lot about cooking, I think it is also describing it quite nicely. So here's an example. Cool butter and warm rice. First of all, savor the difference in their temperatures. Then the two will melt alongside one another, mingle together, and form a golden fountain right there inside your mouth. Even without seeing it, you just know that it's golden. That's the way it tastes. And this is another quote that's touching on the criticism of society. That sort of man isn't looking for a partner with whom they can communicate equally, to share their life with. No. What they want is a capable hostess who listen to them wittering on. And overall I gave it 4.5 stars, and I really liked this book. Then I read Klimakämpfer, which is a book about individuals that all on their own and different ways they try to fight against the climate change. And I have to say it was a good read overall, interesting to see, but I quite felt very hopeless at times, because these individuals that were showcased, just you felt like they were like at a task that they could not win, and then they were trying their best, but of course sometimes these small changes don't have the biggest impact overall if the government don't support it, or politics, or the big companies, and then it gets really hard to do something against it. So I think it was the emphasis is really on the campfire, so the fighter side of the stories. But overall, it's still very fascinating that all these people did not give up, or still are not giving up, and don't feel hopeless, and still are trying and fighting for what they are convinced is the right thing. Then I finished a book that I started a long time ago, and it's called The Diet Myth: The Real Science Behind What We Eat. And I also liked it, but I have to say, overall, it has 352 pages, and the quintessential story is that you have to have a diet with lots of variation, focus on or try to avoid highly processed foods as best as possible, eat more fruits and vegetables in general. So basically, the things that you already know about, but still it was interesting to read. He gave some very good examples as well, where you can really understand it quite well. So like that about the book. And I thought it funny because he really likes the Mediterranean diet, and since I'm right now in Spain, I can witness this with my own eyes. Here that really, I think in general, since it's very typical in Spain to have a first and a second plate for lunch and for dinner. So the people in general, just because of that, eat more variety than if you just have one main meal. And it was interesting to read about something and then witnessing it in real life. Then I continued with the series. So last month, let's see if I can find it quickly. Here. I read The Woven Kingdom, and then I really liked this. And I have to say the second part I still enjoyed, but it felt a little bit that the storyline was a little bit lacking. Still the description, and I really like the characters, I really like the idea, but the end of the book I kind of felt, okay, but what really happened in this book? But still, I liked it, and on the other side you really have the time to get to know the characters a little bit more. So here's some quotes, but be aware that these are some spoilers. "I'm not sorry," she added bitterly, turning to face him. "I'm not sorry I made a deal with your mother to murder you." His lips twitched, his eyes flashing. "I'm not sorry I threw you off a cliff." "Excellent," she said, matching his anger. He only smiled in response. "I'm trying to give you Tulan, a jewel among emperors, a land that is my home. I stand here begging you to marry me, to kill me and take my nation, my crown, my legacy. And you won't even say yes?" He closed his eyes and swore. "I really thought I'd already hit rock bottom, but this is a shade of wretchedness I've never known." And then I continue with the third part, and for now I did not finish the series, so there are 4 parts in general, or overall, but the 4th part compared to the others is double the price, so I don't know, my German heart is a little bit hesitant to buy the last part, even though I really want to know how the story ends, so maybe with some time I decide to buy it, but right now I only read the 3 first parts. And I have to say this as well, I think it quite amazes me how throughout the story in the beginning you quite like a character, and then in the end, because with all the things that happened, you really don't like him. And I have to say in general, I'm not the biggest fan when there's not only one love story but a love triangle. But I think in this case it makes most sense because she is a very powerful queen, and it's a little bit more reasonable than in most of the other stories I read about the love triangle. And it also, in general, the story is quite unpredictable, and I also really like that the side characters have some depth to them and all are interesting, and I like them in their own way. "Are you implying that I'm vain?" "I'm not implying it, Cameron. I'm delivering that statement to you directly." "You're an ass." Fate, he thought bitterly, was only romantic when one was destined to be the hero. And the last book, this one was an audiobook. Since I continue with the story, I think this is now the third or fourth part I read in the stories, and I have to say it is quite nice to listen to when you're doing something else and you already know the characters quite well, but also it's nevertheless nothing special. But in this case, there was some familiar, so I always like when there are little creatures to imagine how they look like, and that part I liked. And this is also a good example where I'm not the biggest fan of the love triangle, or basically that she likes everybody, but at least in this case we got a little bit more the realistic side, and also sometimes people just don't match and in the end it doesn't work out, and that is also the reality, and it doesn't have to be bad, or they don't have to end on bad terms. So in that way, I like the book a little bit better than the previous parts, so I gave it 3.5 stars. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I see you in the next one.